From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief technologist at Stunning Digital Marketing. And today I have a bit of a surprise for you. I have another local person from the Toronto area, Mr. Patrick Brown, with me. And Patrick and I are going to talk all about how do you manage being overwhelmed in your business. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. This episode is brought to you by All-in-One WP Migration, the most trusted WordPress migration plugin with over 60 million sites served. Whether you are switching hosts, changing domains, or moving to a new server, All-in-One WP Migration makes it one click. Try it for free at wordpress.org or visit servemass.com for pro features. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here, and today I've got my guest with me, Mr. Patrick Brown, interestingly and very rare on the show, from Toronto. How are you, Patrick?
I am good, Rob. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Uh,
And yeah, great to
yeah,
be
and
able
a shout
to
out
talk to another local.
our mutual friend Todd Jones in Arkansas, because I think Todd sort of facilitated all of us getting together. But it's so funny.
Like,
I do this show, and I think in all the years I've done the show, beyond a couple people I know local, you take those couple people out, I think I've had two or three local people on the show that I didn't know. So welcome, and it's a pleasure to have you. So I appreciate that.
Pleasure to be here.
Um,
And funny that it takes someone from Arkansas to connect two people in Toronto.
yeah, well, Todd's a bit of a connector too, so nothing
Yep.
surprises me on that one. Um, I thought we'd jump in, and we were just kind of surmising before we went to record about Life, the Universe, and everything else local in the city and what you've done.
Yep.
Today I thought we'd jump into this whole, how do you manage being overwhelmed in business? I mean, it's a
Sure.
big problem. You know it,
Absolutely.
I know it. I
Yep.
manage it one way, and I think I do a really good job. You offer services to help companies manage that, and I think that's really important. How did you get interested in this whole space? Because a lot of people, as far as I'm concerned, they don't do a good job of managing their business. So how'd you end up there?
You know what? A little bit of accident, a little bit of luck.
Okay.
My previous work before doing this, I was in a small company operating retirement residences
Yeah.
in the Toronto area for about 12 years. And I didn't realize it until after I got out of it and started doing some research and some learning. But I evolved into a COO type of role
Hmm.
in that company. I was taking the strategic vision from the owner, turning
Yeah.
it into executable plans, managing frontline staff, department managers, general managers, and just going through all of it. It wasn't until after the fact, because someone had said, a colleague of mine had suggested I look into fractional COO work because we'd worked together and they knew what my skill set was. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. What is that? And I ended up taking a program through MIT, and
Hmm.
I'm partway through the program. I realized, oh, this is what my last role was, at least
Yeah.
in a certain capacity. Obviously, it varies from place to place. Um, and then the overwhelm side of it has kind of come about organically because in that 12 years of being in that company, it was an entrepreneurial company, very small, working from home a lot, managing a lot of my own time, my own things, dealing with life as we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier, and the things that come
Oh
up with
yeah.
that, COVID and everything that came through that. And now I have two small children, and you start to experience that on a more
Yeah.
on in a more kind of acute way. And so through learning and through trial and error, figuring out how to get myself out of those moments so it didn't turn into a rut, it didn't turn into a spiral where I kind of lose a day, and just figure out how to make that happen. And I realized that, this is not something that's exclusive to me. I mean, you
Mhm.
understand it, I understand it. Anyone that started a business understands
Yeah.
that no matter how good you are, there's there's inevitable moments of overwhelm. But
Oh, no question.
obviously, yeah. And so starting a business, it's an endless parade of now I got to think about this. Now I got to learn about
Yeah.
this. Now I got to be aware of this, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't matter whether it goes good, bad, or indifferent. The the parade of things continues. And so that overwhelm becomes very, very real and very possible. And so for some of us, we're fortunate that we have techniques to manage it, keep everything under control, outsource, delegate, whatever is
Mhm.
necessary. But I think for a lot of business owners out there, especially if their business starts to have success that they're not even ready for, that overwhelm can become recurring or even constant. And
Yep.
so now you're dealing with, I can't get my business to where I want my business to go. Or worse, my
Yeah.
family life is being affected. My health is being affected. My
Your
mental health
marriage,
is
your
being
kids.
affected.
Yep. Yep.
Exactly. And that's where it becomes particularly important to me. Like I have an almost 6-year old and a 2-year old, which, I started my family later in life than many do. I don't
Mhm.
want to miss that part of I don't want to miss their lives. I don't want to miss
Yeah.
their growing up. And so it's very
Good for you.
important to me to keep that compartmentalized and keep that under control. And so that's
Mhm.
sort of how it came about, and that's why it's important to me to work on.
I love this because it's such a problem. And
Yeah,
I'm going to jump into a pile of things.
sure.
You set up fractional COOs very often, so that's part of what you do, but we'll get there. I
Yes.
think that's part of the solution. I think part of the problem is entrepreneurs don't like to let go, and they need to learn to. And
No,
I
it's
had a
true.
mentor in the digital marketing game. His name was Paul Toby. I don't know if you know Paul. He ran a
No.
company in Toronto called Training Business Pros and then semi-retired to Niagara on the Lake. And Paul had a philosophy, which I agree with. If you're not good at it, find somebody to do it. If you don't want to do it, find somebody to do it and concentrate on what makes you money. And I tend
Yep.
to agree with that philosophy. Um, I think that's part of it, but I also think it starts with simple things. How well do you manage your time? And you've got two kids, you've got a
Mm-hmm.
wife, so you're
Mm-hmm.
managing four schedules, not one schedule. I'm going to pick on you because it's
Yep.
a good example.
Absolutely.
I always
Absolutely.
say to people, I'm managing multiple schedules because I'm managing mine, I'm managing families, I'm managing my work schedule, a bit my partner's schedule in life because I need to know what she's doing. And then I'm helping a friend, so I'm managing her schedule. So I've got a lot of stuff on the go.
Mhm.
Folks, the first thing you can do is please don't keep four calendars. Don't keep five. Don't keep six. Keep one.
No,
And I mean it. It
absolutely.
starts
No, it's
that
true.
simple.
Yeah. Yeah, it absolutely is. And yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. I think the other key thing is, yeah, I do manage four tools, but I don't manage them alone.
Yeah.
And, I am so lucky to have a partner in my wife
Hmm.
who is
Hmm.
completely supportive, but also just brings so much to the table and is on top of
Yeah.
things, is definitely a yin to my yang. Her
Hmm.
emotional intelligence is off the charts, which is a
Yeah.
huge thing. Also, she's also a
Yeah.
Montessori teacher, so when I'm dealing with my
Oh
small
God.
children,
Oh,
that's
you're in trouble.
no, that's a godsend because there are times where I'm pulling my hair out and she's like, "Look, this is how it works. Their brain's doing this.
Yeah.
They're working on this. They're
Yeah. Yeah.
processing this." And I'm like, "Okay, great, thank you." But I think that's so important. You need that partnership, and
Mhm.
there's so many natural traps that prevent that in some ways people can't be blamed for, but you have to work against it, right? It's really easy to go through whatever day you're going through, deal with the stress that you're going through, and come home and not want to deal with anything on the home front. Or
Yeah.
it becomes very easy to vent or to kind of,
Mhm.
unfortunately direct that frustration at people who have nothing to do with it. And my wife and I have, fortunately, we're aware of it and we work on it, that we don't let our problems come into the home and become something between us. We'll talk about
Yeah.
it. We'll be like,
Yeah.
"Oh man, I'm dealing with this and I'm frustrated because of this and whatever," but it's never at the other person. It's always, "Oh yeah, we're going through it, aren't we?" And we're
Yeah. And
always
you're
able to
and
kind
you're
of sit
going
down
and
and laugh about it.
and you almost have to sit in it together. And I mean that sincerely. Like you can't
Yes.
just gloss it over. I know Tiz and I, if we're not together, because we don't live together, and we have conversations, we will it will be, what can I do for you? And she said, nothing. I just needed to vent it out, or I just needed to. And she's funny because she's the type. She's an admin for a major insurance broker up in Concord, and she'll say, "Oh,
Mm.
I don't want to talk about it," and then 20 minutes later, it's all on the table. Like I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
laugh
yeah.
every time, and she looks at me and said,
Yep.
"Did I just do what I thought I did?" I said, "Yep, you did." And
Hmm.
what we understand enough that you gotta. The key is you have to find people, whether it's your partner, whether it's your family, whether it's friends, colleagues that support what you do. I think where a lot of people get hung up as entrepreneurs and business owners is they surround themselves with the wrong kind of people. And then they
Yep.
wonder why their mental health state, and you alluded to this, and I'm a big mental health guy, takes a dive and they can't handle all the other stuff because you're dealing with people in your life circle that are a problem. That's not a good start to help support what you're trying to do.
No, it's not. And unfortunately, you have to. Here I'm talking like I'm a psychologist or something. This is me
No,
just
but you're
talking from
fine.
my experience.
Yeah.
Um, and it's, my second go around at the marriage
Mhm,
game, so I've learned a little bit. Um,
mhm,
and we understand we do need to talk about it when there's something on our minds. We do need
yeah,
to talk about it when there's an issue between us, but and this is something I'm borrowing from my theater hobby and the director I work with. It's not about what, it's about how.
yes,
It's
boom,
right. It's
yeah,
I'm going to tell you about my problems, but I'm not going to tell you in a way that puts it on your shoulders and puts a
no,
burden on you. I'm just going to be like, oh my God, I'm dealing
yeah,
with this today. Like, and then this happened and it was crazy. And, we bring it to the table that way. And so it never feels like we're putting it on each other. It's just putting it out
mhm,
there, making sure it's heard so everybody knows. I know what she's dealing with. She knows what I'm dealing with. And sometimes
yeah,
it's asking the right questions too. I know for me, and this is where I've gone through a learning curve of screwing things up in
yeah,
my class. I'm a solutions guy. If there's a problem, I want to fix it.
so
But
am
I've
I.
learned
Yeah,
now that's like, okay, you're sometimes we have conversations where I'm like, I need you to tell me what you want from me right now. Because my
mhm,
natural instinct is to give you a solution, but that might not be what you want to hear right now. You
right,
might want me to just empathize, listen,
yeah,
relate, whatever it may be. And I think that's just really important. You got to know, you have to have such, and this goes for your business as well. Like you need to
mhm,
have as innate an understanding of yourself, good, bad, and ugly, to be
yeah,
able to make the home life work, to be able to make your business work, and to make that all work together.
yeah. Boy, do I love what you just said. It's so true. And I see more of me in you every day, every minute, Patrick, because I'm a solutions guy. And one thing I've learned, and in business, the same thing, is I'll sit there and I'll say, okay, so what do you really need? Now that you've thrown it on the table, what do you need? And sometimes, even in the business world, I just needed to throw it out there so I could process. Sometimes it's I
Yep.
need you to do A, B, and C. Sometimes
Yep.
sometimes it's I'll come back to you tomorrow with a plan. I get that. But
Mhm.
I ask that question a lot, and people look at me and say, I have people around me say, you can't figure out. I said, no, I want you to tell me exactly what you want because it's a lot more straightforward going there. The other
Yep.
place we get overwhelmed in business before we jump into the other stuff, while we're talking about time management, is this dreaded thing called a to-do list. And I hate them. I'll tell you that now. So I
Yeah.
I I keep a task list. There's a difference here. And my rule of thumb is if that task is not on the calendar, it's not that important to do right away. So I use my calendar to manage everything. And I have people in my family that say, really, if it's not in your calendar? And I say, I don't care if it's personal, kids, me, friends. If it's not in my calendar, it ain't getting done. I manage my entire life that way. I don't know if you do that, but that works for me.
Yeah, there's definitely an element of it. Part of it is because your day gets so crazy, but the other thing is, when I have a long list of items, if
Yep.
I go into the day going, I want to get a lot of stuff done, but I
Hmm.
don't plan out which things are getting done or have some sort of
Right.
an approach, it's sort of like, okay, I don't know where to start. There's too many things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I take a slightly different approach. I definitely use the calendar, but what I'm doing right now is I'm time blocking to say,
Yep.
okay,
Same thing. Yep.
yeah, so it's like I'm going to work on marketing for this hour and a half, and then as I get closer, what I will say is, okay, here are two, three, like I'll put it right in the appointment on the calendar, the two or three kind of first things I want to get done within that time block, and then if I can get to anything else, great. And so yeah, some of it might be marketing, might be customer fulfillment. I think it was Alex Hormozy is a big proponent of like
Yes,
a
yes.
chunk of time for marketing, a chunk of time for fulfillment, a chunk of time for business building.
Yep.
So I have kind of a slightly modified version of that that I work with. Particularly the other thing is, especially for people like yourself and myself, or if you're doing a lot of networking, the big thing that I needed to do is I needed to start time blocking when I was available for meetings, because I made the silly
Yes.
mistake of just opening up my calendar and using people who were booking things for me. And now it's
Yeah.
like, okay, I may only have 3 half-hour calls, but like, okay, this one's at 10 and this one's at 11:30 and this one's at 1:30, and there's
Yeah.
not enough time to shift gears and do something else. So now it's like, okay, on any given day, I've got 2 or 3 hours that are open on my booking thing for booking meetings, and that's it.
Mhm.
And now it's like,
Yep.
okay, great. If that doesn't get used, now that's bonus time, but
Yep.
it's not just scattered everywhere and making things complicated and
Yeah.
difficult. So yeah, the time blocking is a big thing for me.
So true. For example, I do not allow clients to book into my schedule Friday afternoon unless it's a dire emergency. And everybody
Yes.
says,
Yeah.
why? And I find my clients are all checked out come Friday at noon. So I don't want to
Oh,
have those hard conversations. Now, if an
no,
emergency operational comes up, that's a different story. But generally,
absolutely.
as a rule, that's one of the things I don't allow. And I've learned the same reason I don't allow clients to book into my schedule on a Monday morning for exactly operational reasons. Things come up over
Yeah.
the weekend. So and I've learned the problem you've got is if you allow and you open up your schedule just to meetings, when do you get any actual work done to support those meetings? And that's the other problem. You don't go there.
Absolutely. No, it's
Yeah.
true. And then when I had it wide open, not only were the meetings preventing me from getting other things done, I wasn't even doing a good job of kind of processing the follow-ups. Like
Yeah.
I was going through all these meetings and I was never getting the follow-ups done. And so now it's like, okay, this is my time. Got the meeting. Immediately following the meeting, I'm going to do X, Y, Z just to make sure everything is
Yep.
taken care of and in the calendar for the next things that need to happen.
Yeah.
And then we can go from there. And yeah, absolutely. The Friday after, most people are checked out at that time. But I think
That's
like
true.
what you touched on is it's whatever time it is for you, it's keeping that sacred, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's 4:30, 5 o'clock hits, I'm in family mode. I'm
Yep.
my partner knows not to bother me unless there's an absolute emergency, because from the time I go to pick up the kids from school to the time that they are in bed, it's like I'm not available because it's it's mayhem getting dinner and bedtime for kids, but that's
Yeah.
also my time with them. I don't want to be I don't
You don't want
you know
work
I
all
need to
day.
mentally no, and I need to mentally be focused in with them at that time, just like I need to be mentally focused in on the work when it's time to do the work.
Yeah. The lesson there is have the business work for you, don't work for the business. I say that a lot or some semblance of that, but we
Nice.
need to stop doing that. Um,
Absolutely.
I gotta touch on two dreaded letters because you and
Oh,
I both know in this space. Do you know where I'm going? They're
I've
called AI.
yeah.
AI. And that as your role as a fractional COO has probably complicated things. And in some parts, it makes our life easy, but in a lot of respects, I think it's making our life really hard right now. And I use AI all over my business. Where does that fall into all this stuff?
Yeah, for sure. No, I think you're absolutely right. I think like anything, it has its advantages, but if it's not
Yeah.
used properly, it can become a problem. So I am not an AI expert. If
Okay.
I'm working with a client and they need a solution like design, they need some sort of an agent, I'm going to call somebody in to
Good.
build that for them. But what I
Well,
am going to do is I'm going to make sure, and this is something talking to a number of different AI people, the thing that keeps everybody keeps saying is get get the steps in order, get your procedure, your process in order first.
mhm,
Then how can you sort it out and make it better or improve it or speed it up with
yep,
AI? Then you'll have
yep,
an idea of what tools. But yeah, I mean, using AI for the sake of using it just can become cumbersome and quite frankly dangerous if you're relying on it for accurate information. For me, in what I do, especially, I'm doing some social media stuff and I'm writing things or creating, if I'm creating marketing materials or even other documents, it's brainstorming. It's like, here's what
mhm,
I'm thinking. This is where my mindset is. This is the train of thought I'm on.
yep,
These are the details. Spit something back at me. Great.
yep,
Okay. Tweak this, add this, talk less about this, blah, 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 whatever it may be. Then
yep,
if it's anything that's going to go public facing, then you're going through it with a fine tooth comb and
of
making
course.
sure, because for me, the biggest thing for that sort of thing is I want, maybe about a year or so ago, I made a very distinct promise to myself that anything that I was going to be putting out, whether it's on social media or anywhere else, was going to be in my voice.
Yes,
I
it
made the
should be.
mistake, I made the mistake of turning it over to, I'm not going to say made the mistake. He did a great job in that I gave him the job of like, I need content, have at it. But then I look back and it was all AI driven
Yeah,
jargon, which well designed. He did his job. He did great. It's nothing against him. But I realized I needed to make a shift. Right.
yep,
So I think that's the thing. So for me, it's like, okay, you want to use AI? Great. I think it can be really valuable for you. But what is the process? What are you trying to improve?
mhm,
Therefore, now let's go find the tools or the designer to build whatever it is you need to build so it does the right thing. You know,
I agree.
is it something you want to go out to the world and scour the internet? Or is it something like that you want on a closed system where you're just analyzing your own data,
Mhm.
right? As an example, there's all sorts of questions like that. So that's where I stand on it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the reason it has to be in your voice is there's still a value to a personal brand as well as a corporate brand. And we all know people hire people that they like and they trust. It's very simple. And I get hired all the time because of who I am, the service level I provide, who I know, what connections I have, what I do. Very rarely or frankly out of this podcast because a podcast is a great way to make you shine and me shine. That's why I do it.
Sure,
Whereas
sure,
a lot
yeah,
of a lot of people don't hire because of what my website says. It's interesting. And we're seeing,
interesting.
even with the days of AI, a bigger shift to things like authenticity and your own voice. So you should be commended for coming back to that and saying, hey, I got to do this so it sounds like me. That's a big step, really.
Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate that you think I should be commended. I wanted to slap myself across the face
No,
because,
no.
well, I'll explain why. So I've got my engineering work, technical, functional background, but I'm
Yep.
also a 30 plus year hobby performer, singer, actor, where everything I have learned and everything I've coached and taught to people in that world for many years is the key to connecting with your audience is to be real and to be yourself and
Yes.
to be
And you're not doing
authentic.
it yourself, right?
Yeah, and then like I just stopped and was like,
And
"Hey, idiot, take your own advice. Like, let's
yeah.
go."
It's
So,
one of the
but thank you. I appreciate it.
it's one of the reasons, Patrick, when I do talks, you'll laugh. And we're doing this show, and I didn't come to you ahead of time with a list of questions. I said, well, and even this morning reminded me what we're going to talk about because my head's in a million places. But I don't
Yeah,
do a list of questions, and people say to me, "Why not?" And I said, "I just want it to be real." I do
yeah,
talk, and people used to laugh at me. I'd walk into a college talk in Toronto, and my prof would say, "Can I see your talk before you give it?" Sure. I'd have a piece of paper with 5 questions. He said, "That's not a talk, Mr. Cairns. What the hell are you doing?" And I said, "That's my talk. You haven't seen me speak. Why?" And then he looked at me after and said, I can remember a prof looking at me, an English prof saying, "I owe you an apology." I said, "I told you so."
cool. That's awesome.
Because what most people don't realize is I have a public speaking and a debating background. And the one thing I learned was
Yeah.
to be real a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
I hate presentations with PowerPoints. I do them because conferences require them, but the big joke is that a
Mm.
couple of conferences I've done over the years, proctors will look at me and say, why did you submit a PowerPoint? Because I know you. You're gonna deviate. I said, because I had to. Like because it's not real if you don't. If you're reading off a script, anybody can read. I might as well just send the PDF
Yeah.
file out and say, here you go, right? So, yeah,
Yeah. Exactly.
I
Exactly.
agree.
So yeah, no, it's
Um,
it's it's so important.
Fractional COOs, that term, we've heard of fractional COOs, we've heard of fractional CTOs, we've heard of fractional CEOs. That's become a buzzword, I would say, in the last couple of years, I
Sure.
think.
Yes.
How come?
Yes, absolutely.
How come?
Um, I think a couple of things. This is just my personal
Oh,
opinions on
yeah.
it. One is I think in some ways fractional has become a fancy replacement word for consultant.
Hmm.
Um,
Great.
so I think there were people doing this kind of work before, but they were a consultant and now you're a fractional X. So I think that's part of it. Um, I think honestly, I think COVID have changed a lot of people's mindset about what work they wanted to do, what work they could do. Maybe it took some people out of their existing workspaces and forced them to rethink what they were doing. So it could have come along. It could have come from a few different things, but I also think with so many, there was I think the kind of starting up businesses has taken off more.
Yep.
Especially with podcasts and things with more exposure to it and more voices and coaches and things like that, and so that's given rise to more of an audience for it, I think, or more of a market for it. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Those are my kind of top of mind thoughts as to where that's come from.
Yeah, I don't mind the word fractional. I don't mind the word consultant. I have to tell you, I hate the word freelancer. I really do. And
Mm,
because it just has that cheap connotation to it. And when
right.
you think about it, they all can mean the same thing. And it's to some degree. But I really hate that word. I avoid it like
Yeah.
the plague, actually.
It also it sent. This is just kind of musing on it. Now that you mention it, I feel like it kind of gives a vibe of like, oh, you're in and you're out, and
Yeah.
as opposed to y- people don't want someone who's going to be in and out. Like even though it's fractional, you want someone who's committed to it and is going to be there and dedicated to make getting the work done. So yeah, I
Yeah.
see where you're
Yeah.
coming from on that.
And somebody that even after their time is done, if you need to call them and yeah, pay for it and get some more advice, you can do that. And I think that's the key.
Yeah.
It's all in how you package it versus how you and
Yeah.
present it to the potential client.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think for me as a fractional COO, there's an extra layer there that I have to
Yeah.
be aware of. You know, if I'm a business owner and I need a legal help, financial help, sales and marketing help, it's an obvious leap to go, I'm going to get a fractional who lives in that world because that's not my world, and I'm going to get them to do that for me.
Mhm.
As a
Mhm.
fractional COO, as a business owner, it's your baby and you've built it and you've grown it. And so, and I think as you said, you're hesitant to let go. You're going to be,
Yeah.
protective of it. So the last thing I want to do as a fractional COO is come to someone and try and give them the impression that I know how to run their business better than they do, because I don't.
Yep.
And
You
so,
do
and I
not.
don't see that as my role. I see my role as I like to call it be the Advil to their business headaches, right? What are they
Yep.
dealing with? What do they need? Are they trying to grow? Are they trying to stabilize? Are they trying to organize? Whatever it may be. And, the permanent COO or the full-time COO role is kind of the definition of it varies across different corporations the way it's been applied. There's a whole book about this that the name of it escapes me right now, but it talked about, sometimes the COO is the heir apparent to the CEO. Sometimes
Mhm.
the COO is an experienced executive mentoring a young
Yeah.
up and coming CEO. Sometimes it's a stopgap until they hire somebody. Sometimes it's this, sometimes it's that. It kind of has different definitions depending on where it's been applied. So on a fractional level, it's going to have a similar type of look to it. It's very
Yeah,
much about what does that client need and how can I facilitate that.
so true. Um, as a fractional COO, do you typically, I have to ask because it's hard because you're juggling multiple projects and multiple clients. Do you typically
Yep.
have one or two on the go, or would you have one on the go, or what's kind of the
Yeah, I mean,
mindset
certainly
around that?
it's definitely capped in terms of how many, like, in a
Yep,
fractional COO capacity dedicated to that business. It's definitely capped. Probably, you know, 3 to 4 at a time,
yep,
depending on the
yeah,
scope and scale of what you're dealing with.
yep,
I run some coaching programs that are
mm,
outside of that that are more scalable because it's all done on a group basis and it's more,
yep,
a set list of tools and ideas and things like that for owners who want to kind of structure themselves better. But yeah, on a dedicated level, unless maybe one day I'll reach a point where I want to start bringing in other people to be on the
to
team
work.
and take over certain areas. But yeah, I think 3 to 4 dedicated clients is all I would be looking for.
Yeah. Is the biggest problem when you go into an organization you haven't been in typically policies and procedures
Um, in terms of
or
the biggest challenge that I have to face or that they're
yeah,
facing,
or you have to face or culture, one or the other?
I think very first and foremost, it's that rapport building and understanding the
Yep,
culture.
yep,
Because if I don't have rapport, I can't get anywhere. Right? Anyone who's been involved in any degree of change management, and for me coming into a company, that is what I'm going to be doing, is affecting change in some way, shape, or form.
hmm,
If I don't have rapport with the owner, plus whoever else, whatever other stakeholders, employees, team members might be in place, I've got nothing. So that's
yeah,
got to be number one on my
yeah.
list when I engage with someone.
And then when you're building rapport, you're building trust, and it's
For
that
sure.
wonderful great circle. Um,
Yep.
how's the best way to do that? Walking into a new company? Is it meetings? Is it sitting down and saying,
Yeah.
"Let's go for a walk"? Is it having coffee? Is it having lunch, or all the above?
It could be all of the above. I think it definitely
Hmm.
starts with the owner.
Yeah.
Um, you start out I like to start out just getting a read on a person, right?
Hmm.
I like to think that I'm a little unique. Maybe I'm off, but my left brain and right brain have been playing ping pong for a long time. On the introvert extrovert scale, I'm kind of right in the middle, so I kind of see both
Yeah.
sides of that. So the first thing that I want to do with the owner is, okay, where are you that I need to meet you on your level, from not just from a work standpoint and from a organizational standpoint, but on a personal level, right?
Agreed.
What's going to resonate with you? How can I get through to you? Then through that person, I can start to get a sense of the team, assuming there's a team involved and they're not a solopreneur. Okay, who's on the team? What are the dynamics? What are the challenges they're facing as an owner? So then I have some leverage when I start to meet with them to be like, okay, I
Yeah.
understand this is going on, or, I can just use that in the conversation to have some empathy, have some understanding, and again, also understand what do they want and what do they need, right?
Yeah.
You know this obviously, that an owner and what they want and need personally and out of that business is completely different from an employee,
Oh,
right?
no question.
different
No question.
perspective different perspective, different wants, different needs, different everything. And
Mhm.
so you balance all of those perspectives to help everybody understand one another more, to be able to initiate and execute the changes that you want to make.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate that I got some early experience with that. I was in my 20s working in pharmaceuticals as an engineer, and I got put in charge of supervising the mechanics. And these
Yeah.
guys were all older than me, and you know what mechanics are like. They're
Oh, do I ever? I've
they're
worked with a
they're of a
few.
certain type. And so for me, what gave me success in that situation was the last thing I was going to do is come in and tell them how to do their job. The
Yep.
first thing I was going to do was tell me what's in your way, and then inside I'm like, okay, where's the low hanging fruit that I can knock off immediately to gain rapport and start to build some trust. So yeah, that's what I see. It's yeah, you got to meet everybody. It can be exhausting, because you're
Yeah.
switching gears and you're changing your approach depending on the person, but
Yeah.
that's the key to getting what you need.
I think you mentioned something key. You said get to know them, their business wise, but also personally, because I don't care what anybody says. What happens in your personal life, I hate to tell you, affects your business life and vice versa. And people
Huge.
don't see that. And I don't know
Oh,
why people don't.
yeah. Yeah, and it especially helps with conflict resolution, right?
Yes.
You know, I always kind of allude to it as we're all dragging behind us a wagon of garbage, let's say.
You're being
Um,
polite.
exactly. Uh, we can't see it. We don't know what's in it. We don't know how high it's piled, but we all have it and it's all there.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. It has an impact. Certainly impacts me, when things go sideways in one or the other. And it's naive and just silly to think that it doesn't. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
if we can have that perspective of understanding that we've all got that, then for me at least, it opens up some patience in dealing with people where it's like if I get a really bad reaction from someone or someone kind of comes at me with a negative vibe or personality and I don't understand why, now my first reaction is, okay, I wonder what they got going on behind the scenes that's
Yep.
they're bringing
Of
this to the
course.
table.
And part of the problem in conflict resolution is I don't think, and I've been there, and I'll tell this story. I worked in healthcare, and I had a director who I knew would approve emails without reading past the second paragraph. I knew that.
Oh dear.
I figured that out
Yeah.
early. So, number
Yeah.
one, you have to figure out how people communicate because if
Hmm.
it was really needed her to see that, I would bury it in the first two paragraphs. I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many times I snuck stuff through and I buried it in paragraph 5 or 6, knowing she wouldn't read it. Oh, I admit to it. And you're laughing
Oh,
at me, but again,
no, but
you
it's,
have to.
yeah.
I get these approved emails, and then I get 2 weeks later. Why did you do that? And I said, but I have an email from you that says this was approved. Oh, and I'm like, uh-huh. And I knew what I was doing, by the way, you know.
Absolutely.
But you
Absolutely.
got to
Yeah.
figure out in an organization how to communicate effectively. And I'm going to tell you,
It's
I don't think most companies, and I've worked with some big Fortune 500s. I've worked in big healthcare hospital in Toronto. I've worked all over the place. I don't think employees communicate well, and that's
no,
90% of the problem.
no, I don't think people communicate well
Yeah,
90% of the time. And I think it
yeah,
comes back to, I kind of touched on this before, is
yeah.
if you want to communicate better, part of it is having that innate sense of who you are and what you bring
Mm,
to the table, good, bad, or
yep,
otherwise. For me, I've learned over the years that
yeah,
if someone's thinking two things. One is if someone gives me something to think about and I'm mulling it over, or if I'm in my own head thinking about stuff, I look like this,
yep.
and I call it my resting bitch face. And and
That's funny.
right, and I didn't
Love
even
it.
know because until after like a lot of times of people going, "Are you
Yeah,
okay? Like, what are you
yeah.
upset about something?" It's like, "No, I'm
No,
fine." And then
no.
add to that, when I started getting into an authority role, I tend to be decisive. I tend to be very
Hmm.
forthright in what I
Me
want to
too.
get done and how I want to get
Yeah,
it done. It's served me well. But I've learned that combined with the other factor can be very intimidating or can
yep,
present an image that I'm not trying to present. So
yeah,
I started getting to a point, anytime I started working with a team, I'd be like, hey, everybody, I'm so and so, blah, blah, blah. This is about me. Here's something you need to know. I have this. My face will look like this. I'm not angry. I'm not upset. Just call me out on it and it'll be fine. And it
yep.
seems silly, but it just
I get where.
avoids those kinds of problems. So it's like,
Yeah,
are you know, I'm related to people who I come from a bloodline of people who are honest to a fault sometimes.
me
Like too
too. I'm
logic
brutal.
driven, I'm just gonna say it and not think about the emotional connotations of that, right? So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have to be aware of those things to be able
Hmm.
to be the right kind of communicator for the right person, because it's
Yep,
going to change. You can't talk to everybody the same way.
yep. I'm with you. Like one of the things I know I do is if we're in a heated conversation, I'll stop you and I'll start saying, "Did you mean this? Did you mean that?" And I've had people say to me, "Do you bother to listen?" I said, "I listen. I just want to make sure, and I do that a lot.
Yep.
And people look at me like they're not paying attention.
Yeah.
My pad of paper in front of me shows otherwise.
Yep.
you know,
Yeah.
we all
Yeah.
got
One of the
we all
best
got to learn.
Yeah, one of the best lessons I ever learned in terms of dealing with people or, dealing with difficult situations is it's about the problem, it's not about the person,
Oh yeah,
right? It's
never
like,
make
no,
it
let's
personal. Never make it personal.
no, it's never, hey, you did this. It's okay, that happened. This is what my observation was. Let's talk about it, right? And
Yep,
now it's like now I've put it on the
agreed.
table between us and we can have a conversation as opposed to I've affronted you in some way and now you're getting your back up.
Oh, I
So
agree.
it's yeah, a lot of little lessons learned over the years.
Yeah, you take the personality right out of it, and it solves the explosions, and it's a big deal. Um,
Yeah.
when you go in a company to be a fractional COO, how long are you usually in there for? Is this like 3 months, 6 months, a year? Like, what do you?
Yeah, it can vary. I feel like, if it's a full, uh, immersion in the role of a fractional COO, you're typically looking at about a 3-month minimum.
Okay.
And it depends on what their needs are. If, for some people it's going to be, okay, I just need to get myself to this. I'm here now. I
Yep.
need to get here. Okay, let's work on this, this, and this, and then that'll be it. And other times, I've a general contractor that I work with, and it's the plan is for it to be open ended. It's just no, no,
Hmm.
you're going to be our fractional COO on an ongoing basis because we want to grow, we want to do more commercial work, we want to do more of this, and we need somebody to be. We don't need someone to do it 40 hours a week or more, and we can't afford that. But if we had someone
Yep.
doing it for 5 to 10 hours a week, that'd be great. So
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
Um, is it costly? I have to ask. Like, I'm not asking for a pin down cost, but
Oh, I see.
it is an expense. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, think about, basic math. Think about what a full-time COO or C-suite
Mhm.
executive might cost you.
Yep.
Divide it by whatever fraction you
Yep.
think you might need, and that's what you should reasonably expect. But
Yeah.
at the same time, where I see some advantages of it is you've got an easier exit strategy if things don't work out,
Correct.
right? You can build it all in with, okay, let's do phase one, see how it goes. Good, that went well. Now let's do phase two, however you want to
Yeah.
do it. Um, yeah, and so it's a little bit lower risk in that respect.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's where the good thing comes in.
And I think what businesses need to get off the pot on, and I'm going to say this undiplomatically, is you need to spend money to make money, and you need to
Yeah.
hire good people to be successful. And I think part of the problem with medium and smaller businesses is they do not spend money in the right places. And if they want to grow, this is one of the ways to help you grow, not to hold you back.
No, absolutely. There's a guy that I'm talking to right now about potentially coming on board, and one of the challenges he's facing is I'm spending so much time dealing with
Yeah.
the operations because things have grown that even though things are growing and my customer base is growing, I'm not doing any cultivation. Like the only people I'm serving are the people who are immediately ready to purchase. I'm not even
Yeah.
working on the other leads and getting anything out of that.
And
So like he
that's a
knows
problem. Yeah,
yeah,
and
he
that's a
knows he's
problem.
leaving business on the table because he's tied up in this rat's nest of everything else. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah,
going to cost money for me to jump in, but we unravel the rat's nest and now there's more revenue coming in as a result of it.
yeah. Yeah. As I always tell people, it's nice that you're busy right now, but what are you going to do 6 months from now? You got to be building those leads 365 days a year. And people laugh at me. And I'll
Absolutely.
tell you the worst business for it is real estate business. They all chase listings, they all chase sales, and it's the
Right.
feast or famine. And then they
Yeah.
wonder why. And I keep saying, when you're busy, it's easier to generate leads. We all know that. So generate them. Well, I don't have
Yeah.
time. So here's somebody. Find time. Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
gotta do it. Don't wait till you have no business. Just keep going. I'd rather
Absolutely.
be
Yeah.
I'd rather my agency be piled up with business and saying to clients, I need to book you for a month from now, than say, oh, let's talk about it in a month. That just doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to have that. We used to talk about that with our marketing people in the retirement world.
Yeah.
They,
Yeah.
especially if they got into a stretch, they got into a really hot stretch and they were closing a bunch of leases, and we're
Mhm.
like, "Are you keeping the hopper full?" And you'd know
Yep.
if they didn't because 2 months later it'd be dry, and they'd be refilling, then they'd be refilling the hopper and starting to get people in. And
Yep.
that's a business
Yep.
where you were looking at 6 to 8 points of contact before someone was ready to commit.
At
So yeah,
least.
you have to.
And it's
Yeah,
a different business because it's a life change, number one, for the person going in.
huge,
Number two, you're
huge.
dealing with emotions that people aren't well. You're dealing with family where there's family politics, and you've seen that, and that's just
Oh yeah.
a whole new degree to separation, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
And
you're dealing with
once they're in,
cultural
then they're
difference.
like, "Here, you deal with it."
Yeah, and then when they're not happy, they're like, "Why didn't you?" Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
laughing. Hey, Patrick, love the conversation. If somebody
Likewise. Thank
wants
you.
to talk to you about a fractional COO, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
So if they can go on my website,
Yep.
northlandfractional.com,
Hmm.
and there's buttons to click a free consultation call.
Yep.
They can also find me and Northland Fractional on LinkedIn. So you can
Yep.
direct message me that way or follow the page. I'm putting out YouTube content and things like that, and linking it to that. Those would probably be the best ways to find me.
Yeah, great, Patrick. Good luck with it and have yourself a wonderful day. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob. I really appreciate it. All the best.
Th- You too. Thank you. Thanks again to our sponsor, All in One WP Migration by ServeMask. Export your entire WordPress site in one click, import it anywhere. No server access needed, no command line, works with every hosting provider. Free on WordPress.org or extension at servemask.com. A very special thank you to Patrick Brown for joining me on this edition of the SDM Show. The SDM Show is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much every day. My mother, Ann Cairns, who's still doing really well and is an inspiration. And of course, Tiz Maroney. And Tiz, I know I've said it, but thank you so much for all the inspiration you give me every day.